War is hell, but what if it never ended? Across the United States, fields once soaked in blood now whisper with the voices of the past. Where cannons roared and soldiers fell, shadows still move, echoing their final moments. These are the battlefields where history refuses to die, where restless spirits still march, and where the echoes of war never fade. From the blood-soaked fields of Gettysburg, where thousands perished in a 3-day slaughter, to Antietam, where the single deadliest day in American history still lingers in the mist. In the haunted forests of Chickamauga, the glowing-eyed specter of Old Green Eyes watches in the darkness, while the fallen defenders of the Alamo stand eternal, guarding their sacred ground. And in Shiloh, where the water ran red with the blood of the wounded, the phantom drummer still beats his ghostly rhythm, leading soldiers into a battle long lost to time. These battlefields are more than history. They are haunted. And if you listen closely, you just might hear the past calling you back. Gettysburg Battlefield, where spirits still march. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, is not just a site of historical significance. It is a place where echoes of the past refuse to fade. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863, was one of the most decisive and blood-soaked confrontations of the American Civil War. Over 50,000 soldiers were killed, wounded, or went missing, turning the rolling farmlands into a brutal killing ground. The sheer scale of death and suffering has left an indelible mark on the land, and many believe the spirits of those who fell still roam the battlefield, forever locked in the horrors of war. Visitors and paranormal investigators alike have reported a chilling range of supernatural occurrences. Among the most common experiences are the sounds of phantom gunfire and cannon blasts echoing through the fields, as if the battle is still being fought in some spectral realm. Disembodied voices are often heard, calling out commands or screaming in agony. The thick morning fog that frequently blankets the fields is sometimes accompanied by the appearance of ghostly figures, emerging only to fade back into nothingness. One of the most haunted spots in Gettysburg is Devil's Den, a rocky outcrop that saw intense fighting. Confederate sharpshooters used the location to pick off Union soldiers, only to be overtaken and killed themselves. Many visitors claim to see shadowy figures darting between the rocks, or feel an eerie presence watching them. Some even report capturing strange anomalies in photographs, including ghostly soldiers and unexplained light orbs. Another notorious location is the wheat field, where thousands of men perished in brutal close combat. The land changed hands multiple times during the battle, and the ground was soaked with blood. Park rangers and tourists have reported strange occurrences, including the sensation of being watched and hearing whispers or footsteps when no one is around. Some claim to have seen apparitions of soldiers wandering through the field, forever lost in their final moments of battle. Little Round Top is another eerie hotspot. This hill was the scene of a desperate fight where Union forces barely managed to hold their ground. The spirits of fallen soldiers are said to still patrol the area, with many visitors encountering spectral figures dressed in Civil War uniforms. Some even claim to have been approached by a man in period clothing, who provides detailed battlefield information before vanishing without a trace. Perhaps one of the most famous ghostly encounters at Gettysburg comes from the sacks-covered bridge, which was used as both a passage for troops and an execution site for Confederate deserters. Many believe the spirits of these executed men still linger, their tortured souls unable to find peace. People walking the bridge at night have reported feeling a sudden chill, hearing whispers, and even seeing ghostly figures hanging from the wooden beams. The Gettysburg National Cemetery, where thousands of Union soldiers are buried, is another site filled with paranormal activity. Many visitors have felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow and unease. Some claim to hear the sound of faint drum rolls and marching footsteps at night, as if the spirits of the fallen are still answering the call to arms. Beyond the battlefield itself, Gettysburg's haunted legacy extends into the town. Many buildings, which were used as field hospitals, are said to be haunted by the restless spirits of wounded soldiers who never made it out alive. The Farnsworth House Inn, for instance, housed Confederate sharpshooters during the battle, and its attic is believed to be haunted by the ghost of a young soldier. Guests staying at the inn have reported hearing footsteps above them, as well as seeing shadowy figures in the hallways. With so much tragedy and violence concentrated in one place, it is no wonder that Gettysburg is considered one of the most haunted battlefields in the United States. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, there is an undeniable presence that lingers in the air, a weight of history that refuses to be forgotten. Those who visit often leave with an unshakable feeling that they were not alone, as if unseen eyes were watching them from beyond the veil of time. Antietam Battlefield, the blood-soaked ground of spirits. The Antietam battlefield in Maryland is one of the most haunted sites in American history, forever marked by the horrors of the bloodiest single-day battle of the Civil War. On September 17, 1862, Union and Confederate forces clashed in a brutal confrontation that left 23,000 soldiers dead, wounded, or missing. The staggering loss of life turned the peaceful farmlands into a slaughterhouse, and many believe that the spirits of those who perished still wander the battlefield, trapped in an endless cycle of war and death. One of the most chilling areas of Antietam is the Sunken Road, later named Bloody Lane for the sheer amount of carnage that took place there. Confederate troops were positioned along this defensive trench, but they were overwhelmed by waves of Union soldiers, leaving thousands of bodies piled upon one another in a nightmarish scene of destruction. Today, visitors walking along Bloody Lane report hearing phantom gunfire, distant cries of pain, and whispered voices in the wind. Some even claim to see the spectral figures of soldiers standing along the road, their faces pale and frozen in anguish, as if they are still defending their position. Another infamous location is Burnside's Bridge, where Union troops under General Ambrose Burnside attempted to cross Antietam Creek under relentless Confederate fire. The battle raged for hours, with soldiers falling into the water, turning the creek red with blood. Even now, the bridge carries an eerie energy. Visitors often feel an overwhelming sense of sorrow, as if unseen eyes are watching them. Many have reported seeing ghostly figures in tattered uniforms standing on the bridge or pacing along the banks of the creek. Some even claim to hear the faint sounds of drum beats and distant cannon fire echoing through the air. The nearby Pry House, which served as a field hospital during the battle, is another hotspot of paranormal activity. With thousands of wounded soldiers passing through its doors, the house became a place of agony and death. Amputations were performed with crude instruments, and the floors were soaked in blood. Today the house is a museum, but many visitors and staff report feeling an oppressive presence, as if the spirits of the wounded still linger. Strange noises, flickering lights, and shadowy apparitions are commonly experienced, making the Pry House one of the most unsettling places on the battlefield. The cornfield, another location where thousands of men fell, is a particularly eerie place at dawn. The battle here was relentless, with soldiers firing blindly through the dense stalks, unable to see their enemies until it was too late. The ground was littered with bodies, and the corn was stained red with blood. Those who visit the cornfield early in the morning often report an eerie silence, punctuated by the phantom sounds of battle, gunfire, screams, and the clash of bayonets. Some have even claimed to see ghostly soldiers moving through the mist, still engaged in their final desperate fight. The Dunker Church, a small white structure that became a focal point of the battle, is also believed to be haunted. Used as a field hospital and makeshift morgue, the church saw unspeakable suffering. Visitors have reported feeling a strange coldness inside the church, even on warm days, and some claim to hear the murmured prayers of soldiers seeking salvation. Others have seen shadowy figures standing near the windows, staring out as if waiting for something that will never come. The haunted legacy of Antietam extends beyond the battlefield itself. The nearby town of Sharpsburg, which was directly impacted by the fighting, is also home to numerous ghostly encounters. Many buildings served as hospitals for the wounded, and the spirits of those who never recovered are said to still linger. Some residents and visitors have reported hearing disembodied voices, phantom footsteps, and even seeing the apparitions of soldiers wandering the streets at night. With its staggering death toll and unimaginable suffering, Antietam remains a place where history refuses to rest. Whether it is the spirits of soldiers trapped in an endless battle or the lingering energy of a day filled with terror, something unseen still walks the blood-soaked fields. Those who visit often leave with a heavy heart, feeling as if they have stepped back in time to witness a battle that never truly ended. Chickamauga Battlefield, the ghosts of a forgotten war. The Chickamauga Battlefield in Georgia is one of the most haunted battle sites in the United States, its lands forever marked by the horrors of war. Fought from September 18th to 20th, 1863, the Battle of Chickamauga was one of the bloodiest conflicts of the Civil War, leaving over 34,000 soldiers dead, wounded, or missing. This gruesome struggle between the Union and Confederate forces transformed the once peaceful woodlands into a slaughterhouse. Today, those who walk the battlefield often report eerie encounters, as if the spirits of the fallen still linger, unwilling to leave the place where they met their tragic end. The battlefield itself is shrouded in an unsettling energy. The rustling of the trees and the distant sound of the nearby Chickamauga Creek often seem to carry whispers, muffled voices and cries of pain that defy explanation. Soldiers, both Union and Confederate, fought ferociously in these fields, often engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The sheer scale of violence that took place here seems to have left a permanent imprint, and many who visit claim to feel an overwhelming sense of sorrow, as if the very ground still mourns those who fell. One of the most famous supernatural legends of Chickamauga is the figure known as Old Green Eyes. Described as a spectral being with glowing green eyes, long hair, and a menacing presence, this entity has been reported by soldiers and visitors alike for over a century. Some believe it to be the restless spirit of a Confederate soldier who was decapitated in battle, his head searching for his lost body. Others think it might be something far older, a supernatural guardian of the land disturbed by the bloodshed. Those who have encountered Old Green Eyes speak of an overwhelming feeling of dread, as if something otherworldly is watching from the shadows of the trees. Another terrifying location on the battlefield is Snodgrass Hill, where Union soldiers made a desperate last stand against the Confederate assault. The fighting was relentless, and the hill became a mass grave for those who fought there. Today, it remains one of the most paranormally active spots in Chickamauga. Visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures moving among the trees, hearing ghostly whispers, and even feeling unseen hands tugging at their clothing. Some have even described hearing the sound of marching footsteps, as if an invisible army is still patrolling the hill, preparing for a battle that never ends. The Wilder Tower, a stone monument dedicated to Union General John T. Wilder and his troops, is another eerie hotspot. Many visitors have reported an overwhelming sense of unease upon approaching the tower, as if they are being watched. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures standing at the top of the tower, peering down at them before disappearing into thin air. Others have heard voices echoing from within the structure, despite it being completely empty. The battlefield's thick forests and dense fog only add to its ghostly atmosphere. Many park rangers and visitors have told stories of getting lost, even in familiar areas, as if the land itself is shifting around them. Some claim to hear the sounds of battle, distant cannon fire, musket shots, and the anguished cries of wounded soldiers, only to find nothing when they investigate. Others have seen full-bodied apparitions of soldiers standing silently before vanishing into the mist. Beyond the battlefield, the town of Chickamauga is also filled with paranormal activity. Many of its buildings served as makeshift hospitals during and after the battle, and the suffering that took place there seems to have left a lasting presence. Residents have reported seeing ghostly figures wandering through their homes, hearing footsteps in empty hallways, and experiencing objects moving on their own. The Gordon Lee Mansion, which served as a hospital, is particularly known for its ghostly occurrences. Visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures in the windows, hearing disembodied voices, and feeling sudden cold spots as they walk through the house. Chickamauga is more than just a historic battlefield. It is a place where the past refuses to stay buried. The spirits of those who fought and died here seem unable to move on, forever reliving the horrors of war. Whether it is the ghostly soldiers still marching through the woods, the strange presence of old Green Eyes, or the lingering sorrow that fills the air, Chickamauga remains one of the most haunted battlefields in the country. Those who visit often leave with an eerie feeling that they were not alone, as if unseen forces were watching, waiting, and whispering from beyond the veil of time. The Alamo, Spirits of the Fallen Defenders. The Alamo in San Antonio, Texas, is one of the most iconic battle sites in American history, but it is also one of the most haunted. The battle fought here on March 6, 1836, during the Texas Revolution was a brutal and lopsided conflict. A small group of Texan defenders, numbering around 200, stood against the Mexican army of General Santa Anna, which boasted thousands of soldiers. After 13 days of siege, the Alamo fell in a horrific slaughter. Nearly all of the defenders were killed, including famous figures like James Bowie, William B. Travis, and Davy Crockett. Their bodies were burned in mass pyres, and the Spanish mission that became their final stand was left a blood-soaked ruin. Today, those who visit or work at the Alamo report that the spirits of the fallen still linger, forever guarding the site where they met their tragic end. From the moment one steps onto the Alamo grounds, an undeniable energy fills the air. Some describe it as reverence, while others feel an oppressive weight, as if the tragic history is still unfolding around them. Visitors and staff alike report inexplicable cold spots, sudden chills, and the eerie feeling of unseen eyes watching them. The old mission's walls seem to whisper, and many have heard disembodied voices in Spanish and English, echoing as if they are carried through time. One of the most commonly reported ghostly sightings is that of a tall, shadowy figure standing near the main entrance. Some believe this is the spirit of a Mexican soldier, possibly one of Santa Anna's men, who died during the assault. Others claim to see the apparitions of Alamo defenders patrolling the grounds, their spectral figures dressed in 19th-century clothing, seemingly unaware that their battle ended long ago. Security guards and employees have told stories of hearing heavy footsteps in empty rooms, the sound of weapons clashing, and faint echoes of war cries in the dead of night. Inside the long barrack, where many of the defenders made their last stand, the paranormal activity is particularly intense. Many visitors have reported hearing ghostly moans and cries of pain, as if the final moments of the wounded are playing out again and again. Some claim to feel unseen hands brushing against them, or a sudden feeling of dread, as if they are being surrounded by unseen forces. Strange misty apparitions have also been captured in photographs, their outlines resembling soldiers from another era. The most terrifying encounters often come from those who stay near the Alamo after dark. Hotel guests at nearby buildings have reported seeing ghostly figures standing atop the walls, as if still keeping watch for an enemy attack. Others claim to hear the faint sounds of distant cannon fire and musket shots in the early morning hours. The Emily Morgan Hotel, which was once a hospital, is one of the most haunted places in San Antonio, with guests reporting full-bodied apparitions, flickering lights, and ghostly voices calling out in the night. One of the most famous ghost stories of the Alamo dates back to the aftermath of the battle. When Santa Anna's forces ordered the mission to be torn down, Mexican soldiers claimed to have encountered spectral figures standing in front of the mission, warning them not to proceed. Some even reported seeing ghostly men holding swords of fire, deterring them from destroying the ruins. Frightened, the soldiers refused to complete the destruction, leaving much of the Alamo standing. Even in modern times, the spirits of the Alamo seem unwilling to leave their post. Tour guides, historians, and ghost hunters frequently experience paranormal phenomena, from eerie whispers to the sensation of being followed. Some believe the spirits of the fallen remain to protect the site, unwilling to let their sacrifices be forgotten. Others think the violent nature of their deaths has left a powerful imprint on the land, ensuring that their presence will never fade. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, there is no denying that the Alamo holds a haunting energy unlike any other battlefield. The echoes of the past seem to permeate every stone, and those who visit often leave with the unshakable feeling that they were not alone. The spirits of the Alamo stand eternal, their presence a testament to the tragic and heroic history of this sacred ground. Shiloh Battlefield, Echoes of the Dead in the Tennessee Fog. The Shiloh battlefield in Tennessee is one of the most haunted battle sites in the United States, a place where the echoes of war still linger in the mist. Fought on April 6th to 7th, 1862, the Battle of Shiloh was one of the bloodiest engagements of the Civil War, resulting in over 23,000 casualties. What was once a quiet stretch of farmland became a scene of unimaginable carnage as Union and Confederate forces clashed in a desperate struggle. The land was soaked in blood, bodies lay scattered across fields and forests, and the sounds of agony filled the air. Even today, visitors to Shiloh report eerie encounters, ghostly figures, phantom gunfire, and the whispers of soldiers who never left the battlefield. One of the most infamous sites at Shiloh is the Hornet's Nest, where Union forces held their ground against relentless Confederate attacks. For hours, waves of soldiers charged into a storm of bullets and cannon fire, with thousands falling in the chaos. The battle was so fierce that wounded men lay moaning in the tall grass, their voices blending with the drone of insects, giving the place its ominous name. Even now, visitors walking through the area report hearing faint cries of pain, gunfire in the distance, and the eerie sensation of being watched. Some have even claimed to see shadowy figures moving through the trees, as if the battle never truly ended. Another chilling location is Bloody Pond, where wounded soldiers from both sides crawled to drink and wash their wounds, only to die in its waters. The pond, once a source of life, became a graveyard as the water turned red with the blood of the fallen. Even today, the pond is said to carry the weight of the tragedy. Some visitors claim to see ripples in the water when there is no wind, as if invisible hands still reach out from below. Others have reported seeing ghostly reflections in the water, faces of soldiers staring back before vanishing into the depths. The Shiloh Church, which gave the battle its name, was used as a field hospital during and after the fighting. Here, surgeons worked tirelessly to save the wounded, often resorting to brutal amputations with little or no anesthesia. The church walls absorbed the screams of men enduring unimaginable pain, and some say those cries can still be heard today. Visitors walking near the church have reported sudden cold spots, the feeling of unseen hands brushing against them, and the distant sound of muffled prayers. Some even claim to have seen ghostly figures in tattered uniforms, standing near the ruins, staring silently before fading into the night. Perhaps the most unsettling presence at Shiloh is that of the phantom drummer. Many soldiers during the Civil War relied on drummers to relay commands, their steady beats guiding men into battle. At Shiloh, one such drummer boy is said to have met a tragic fate, his body left among the dead. Yet some say his spirit still lingers. On quiet nights, visitors and park rangers have reported hearing the rhythmic sound of a drum beating in the distance, growing louder before suddenly stopping. Others have claimed to see the ghostly figure of a young boy walking the battlefield, clutching a drum that makes no sound. Shiloh is also known for an unsettling phenomenon: the spectral armies. There are countless reports of visitors witnessing full apparitions of soldiers, sometimes appearing in large groups as if they are still marching to war. These figures are often seen in the early morning fog, only to vanish as the sun rises. Some witnesses describe hearing the sounds of an entire battle, cannon fire, musket shots, and the screams of the dying, only to realize they are completely alone. The spirits of Shiloh do not just haunt the battlefield itself. The nearby town and surrounding areas are filled with ghostly tales. Residents have reported seeing soldiers walking along roads late at night, only for them to disappear when approached. Homes that served as makeshift hospitals during the battle are said to be haunted by the spirits of the wounded who never recovered. Objects move on their own, disembodied voices whisper in empty rooms, and strange shadows flicker across walls with no explanation. Shiloh remains a place where history refuses to rest. The tragedy of those 2 bloody days in 1862 seems to have left a permanent mark on the land. Whether it is the cries of dying men on the hornet's nest, the eerie silence of Bloody Pond, or the ghostly echoes of drums leading soldiers into battle, the battlefield remains alive with the spirits of the past. Those who visit often leave with a sense of unease, as if they were not alone, because at Shiloh the dead still march and the war never truly ended.